It makes too much sense, my friends. This is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. We got a lot to get into in this video. What's going on with Big Lots? Oh, yes, and also not just Big Lots, but also Lowe's. We'll get into that. We'll also get into how Amazon, Facebook, and a number of other huge companies are basically not paying their taxes. And we're talking 100 billion plus in taxes while they make it appear as if they did. We'll get into that. We're going to get into actually a ton of stuff. What happened at the convention there, of course, in Chicago, and also a number of other things. Also, them erasing 1 million of something. We'll get into that as well, and also something, an update on Harley Davidson and much more. Let's just get into this. Let's start with Big Lots. Apparently, Big Lots closing hundreds of stores after warning it could go out of business. I was warning about this, my friends. I said, you know, we see these top level, but not the top level companies having problems of recent. And we saw that also with the LL Flooring. You know, Lowe's and some of these other ones, they're still in business, but you have some of these other companies that went out of business, like LL Flooring and one of the biggest paint companies. Now we're seeing Big Lots. Of course, Big Lots can't compete maybe with some of the bigger brands, so they're the ones that might be going next. We'll see what happens. But this could also hit even the top companies. That's what people don't understand. That's where we're at with the economy right now. And the fact of the matter is we have also a story with Lowe's here. Sees sales drop, cuts 2024 outlook as consumers put off home improvement projects. I wonder why. Could it have to do with the cost of living? Could it have to do with the ridiculous prices for homes, particularly in Florida, as I covered in the previous video, where they're having to slash prices by 40% just to get anybody to rent from them? We've had abandoned building projects in Miami that John Williams was showing. I showed it in the last video. Fact is, we can see obviously homes are not doing too well. The ratio is now 6.7 cost of a home versus how much you make a year, and it's only went up every year since 19. Well, it hasn't went up every year. It goes like this, but it's basically on average going up every year. So of course we also have this here, closing locations. I just typed that into Google. And there's lots of companies closing locations. Nordstrom, KFC, got Denny's restaurant. As you can see, a lot of Rite Aid, all these different companies closing locations. So it just continues. And while this is all happening, you have companies like Harley Davidson saying, yeah, let's go woke. What a great idea. Exactly before Sturgis. You remember that whole thing, right? Well, they had to backtrack. Of course they had to backtrack. Harley Davidson, John Deere, backing down from DE, of course I. This is not all. There's so many companies that are backing down now because they can't afford to be this way anymore. Okay? We have Robbie here pointing out that 3 of the companies that they'd basically been covering about this all backtracked. And not only that, even more companies backtracked that he wasn't even trying to talk to. Indian Motorcycle, Polaris, both also got rid of their DE, and all that kind of stuff. So that's some good news that we have there. Now, this is amazing. And this is just an example of what we've been seeing for the last, I would say, year, where they play these number games with the formulas. Oh, jobs are awesome, and no inflation. No inflation while gold's up 20%. No inflation, though. It's just a figment of your imagination. That's why you're poor, It's figment of your imagination. Now we have the Fed confronts up to 1 million U.S. jobs vanishing in revision. And, of course, they put the revision on the lowest tier for anybody to see it. I mean, it's like page 10 on the newspaper. No one's going to see this. They say the jobs are awesome, and then they go, whoops, we were wrong. We only added accidentally an extra 1 million to it. Whoops. I don't know how you accidentally add an extra 1 million jobs to your report, unless you're just trying to lie. Maybe that's what you're doing. You're just trying to lie. Just say it. That's what you're doing. Right? Of course. And this isn't the first time. This is like, what, the fourth time they've done this? They have to revise the job numbers every time. This time it's 1 million. Unbelievable. Then you have, of course, the number of companies declaring bankruptcy has doubled in just 2 years. Chapter 7 filings, which are liquidation, and you got Chapter 11s. There's a lot of Chapter 11s as well over the last 2 years. And, of course, we're now seeing the signs on the wall, the writing on the wall, my friends, as the old saying goes. All the devils from 2008 are back. Mega banks, leverage, off-balance sheet debt, over 192 trillion in derivatives, which are just gobbledygook pretending to be like backed by something. Shaky capital levels. All the wonderful banks. Yes, indeed. Here we go. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, Citibank, Bank of America. Total assets versus total derivatives. The derivatives just dwarf the assets, as you can see here. It's really ridiculous, actually. Matter of fact, Goldman Sachs is beyond ridiculous. Look at those numbers. What is that? Is that a 100-fold? Is that a 100-fold? No, what is that? No, what is that? That is a 100-fold, isn't it? That's a 100-fold. That's literally a 100-fold their actual assets. I just had to I had to look back at it a couple times. Like, what? No assets, tons of derivatives. That is absolutely ridiculous. This isn't real. Okay, this whole economy is just a massive bubble. Warren Buffett obviously knows this. Decision to sell stocks and raise record cash before sell-off sends wake-up call. Duh. While all the outlets are like, he's going to buy any minute now. Everything's great. The economy's awesome. Yeah, okay, dude. That's why the Japanese stock market crashed. That makes total sense. And of course, you have this 32-year market vet shares 4 employment indicators that show labor market is falling apart. So obviously not exactly the best news in the world, as you can tell. But we actually do have some other things to talk about. We have some good news, a little bit of good news. First, I got to mention food supply, 25-year shelf life. Link is in the description. They have a new package, as I mentioned, 3-month mega package, $750. Link is in the description. You're going to definitely want to get this, considering all the wonderful things ahead of us, my friends. Oh, it's just going to be paradise. We got to talk about the of course, pox thing going on. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about this rumor of power, of course, outages for 3 weeks coming. Yay! And I'm being completely sarcastic, but actually it's a legitimate thing. It's a legitimate piece of information. I talked about it in a previous video, actually. Someone who predicted the IT outage, he's now predicting that there will be, and he predicted on the exact right day. He said to a lot of people, just don't buy plane tickets on that day. It's not going to work out for you. He warned a lot of people with his message, and now he's saying there will be 3 weeks between now and the end of the year. Somewhere in there, there'll be 3 weeks without, of course, power. Wow, that sounds great. So honestly, it's something to be prepared for. You never know if this is going to happen. Link is in the description. $750 for 3 months worth. If you went to Walmart, you wouldn't even be able to get a month and a half of food for about this price. For one person, even at this point. It's just ridiculous, the inflation. Of course, this book here, The Lost Ways, how your great-great-grandfather lived without electricity, how to build a cellar, do things around the house like they did in the old days, hundreds of pages, and illustrated, and you're going to need it. You're going to need it if this does indeed happen as they're saying, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. This guy back here, he has a number of people that give him information, and he has a YouTube channel on here. His name's Perry Stone. He's been around forever. I remember watching him like 20 years ago, back in the old days. He's talking about how he has a number of people that give him information. And one person follows the dark, of course, web. And there's one person on that was that indicated when the IT outage was. And the very same exact person is now saying there's going to be 3 weeks coming up soon here where we will have no, of course, power. Or at least someone's going to attempt this. And I did a video on that. It's like, I think the video before last. You can go check it out. I go into detail about it. But something to think about. You're going to definitely want to be prepared for that. Link is in the description. $37. Get the printed version. $37 plus shipping. Link below. And of course, let's get back to the video. So we have 21.3% of the U.S. population participates in assistance programs each month, government assistance programs. So this is a huge percentage of people at this point. And clearly that's not what you would call a good sign. Now, the percentage of Americans skipping meals. Here you have this as well. 27% of Americans surveyed say they occasionally skip meals. They said the survey also found 28% of people putting off paying for necessities like rent and other bills. So there's that as well. Now we have this. Now, this kind of goes into the whole thing at the convention over there in Chicago, the DNC, where Cammie, we'll call her Cammie, she's saying that she wants to put price caps on groceries and things like that, which, I mean, you could put price caps on Apple. You could probably, I mean, it would probably work out okay. You know, like maybe Apple or like some of these companies are just totally price gouged like crazy, like Nike, you know, like where they make the shoe for like $20 and then they sell for $300. I mean, I think it'll be okay if you put some price caps. Obviously, this is not a good plan because they're not business people. They're like GOV. They don't know what they're doing, right? This is not, that's a very bad idea, as you can tell. I mean, there's much better ways to solve this whole problem, like putting the dollar back on the gold standard, as I indicated before. But here's another factor. Look at this. Amazon, Facebook, other tech giants paid almost $100 billion less in taxes than they claimed. So they paid $100 billion less in taxes. Now, of course, I mean, honestly, it's a big number, but compared to compared to what our GOV spends, it's not a lot. I mean, you know what I mean? But the fact is they are definitely skipping out on paying certain taxes, and it could be friends in high places, right? Making deals, shaking hands, giving contributions, all that kind of wonderful stuff, right? And of course, they also were the ones that got some handouts, bigger ones than we did during the whole shutdown in 2020, right? The whole thing. And that's why we're paying so much in inflation, is because of these companies and people at the top basically getting all the money, and we got just the chump change and stimulus. Now, that's what's really the reason why we have such bad inflation. It's not because of the prices of food. That's just not the case. But the fact is, though, they could solve this by putting it back on the gold standard. Her idea, this is from Newsweek, her idea of grocery price gouging and plan to put price caps is riddled with problems, experts say. Yeah, of course it is. That's absolutely ridiculous. We did it back in the 1970s with Nixon. We did it also with Carter. Just didn't work out, right? Now, of course, also, Cammie wasn't exactly picked by people, you know, on the left, right? As you can see here, they're not very happy. They're outside, thousands upon thousands, outside the convention, not very happy with who is running the show, who they got as they're running, you know, who's going to be basically who they have to choose, right? Now, some tear down the fence as thousands march outside convention, much more than the other side did. And this is something that they downplay. It's really kind of funny. If you go look at the outlets and what they were saying, when you look at the RNC, they were acting like, oh, there's tons of protests, but there was like almost nobody, right? But then when you look at this one and you go look at the news, it's like, oh, there's this super small, when it's like huge. So like they're like framing and telling you, and they're basically molding it to what they think they want you to think. That's what we're seeing, a lot of that stuff going on with that. Now, of course, the actual real important thing for this time, my friend, we got the Gen Z here, cynical about future as majority call cost of living the number one issue, right? The fact of the matter is, this is the real reason, this is the real problem right now. This is probably not, I wouldn't say number one for everybody, but this is clearly up there at the top. Cost of living. And we need to solve that. The easiest way to solve it, like I mentioned, is probably to put the dollar back on the gold standard. We already saw one country do this. Their groceries are about half to a third the price of ours. They're back at like 2022 or 2021 prices. And if you think that was a high price back then, I showed a video where this guy, he spent like, what was it, like 160 in 2022, and now it's like 415 for the same items. It's like almost triple the price it was back in 2022, double, triple. So you would be basically paying about a third, maybe 40% what you currently are. If they put the dollar back on the gold standard, it would probably take a year or two for it to get there, but it would eventually get there. It would start becoming much more affordable very quickly. Now, of course, they're talking about shutting, of course, everything down again. They're already trying to do this. And you know what? Look, what we're still dealing with the fallout from the first time. We're still dealing with it. That's what inflation is. Our economy is worse right now while everybody's working than when everybody was sitting at home in 2020. We're actually worse off right now working than when we were sitting at home in 2020. Okay, that's how bad it is right now in the economy. And they're talking about shutting it down again. Oh no, there's something out there. A boogeyman might get us. Another or some other thing, you know, some little bump on your arm or something, right? This is what they're doing. They're trying to do it again. Matter of fact, we already have countries doing stuff. Hong Kongers traveling to mainland China will have to be screened. Wow, that's nice. And that's not it. Actually, they're already preparing for certain countries in Africa. Already. I think it's 2 million. They already have 2 million of these. They're preparing 2 million of these. Within days, they're going to start it. And then, of course, the question is, I mean, what is the question? We already knew they were going to do this, dude. It's like so obvious. We were predicting this 6 months ago. This is what they're going to do. And they're doing it. They're already trying to do it. But the only problem is nobody believes them anymore. So are they going to be able to pull this off? I have a funny feeling they won't be able to pull it off. I have this funny feeling like things are not going to shut down here. Because if they shut down, everybody is going to be completely and utterly broke. So now that the tide is turned, let me tell you why. It's not just that people don't believe the GOV anymore. You got another factor. People are broke and they can't sit at home. Okay? They can't just sit at home anymore like they did last time. You sit at home, you're a goner economically, period. So you have people don't believe them, and you're a goner economically if you sit at home. So I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. It's going to have to be the most ridiculous thing ever, and that clearly is not. Because, I mean, honestly, I don't sense anything yet. I mean, with the first time around 2020, everybody's like, oh no, what's going on? I was like, oh no, this could be the zombie apocalypse. I mean, the first time I was actually kind of feeling it. This time I'm like, yeah, right, dude. Give me a break. No, I'm not going to follow this. I'm not following. You know, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, right? It's something like that, basically. So there's no way I think people will fall for it this time. Of course, then we got some other stories here. We got Snow White star Rachel Zegler derails remake. Ad campaign with another woke outburst. She seems to do this every time. After branding experts warned her antics may trigger loss of money. Nobody wants to see the movie. I don't understand this. Why they put these people in these star positions with these type of mindsets. We have, of course, also Brie Larson, who threw a fit as well that her scene was cut out of Deadpool and Wolverine. And honestly, I'm guessing they're thanking God that they did cut it. Because if they didn't cut it, they would have probably lost hundreds of millions of dollars. I've almost made $1.2 billion on this movie. It's like insane how much money they made on this movie. And if they would have left that scene with Brie Larson in it, it would probably made half as much. I'm serious. Like, I really think it would have lost a lot of money. They would have lost hundreds of millions of dollars. And she clearly is not worth that. Brie Larson fired from Deadpool 3 as Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman battle Disney. They're like, no, we want a successful movie. Get her out of here. Right? And it's just like that movie Aquaman, the last one. They brought in Johnny Depp's ex-wife. What's her name? Amber Heard. And they knew they lost money because of it. I don't know how much they lost, but I'm sure it was hundreds of millions. I'm guessing. I could be wrong, but I'm guessing hundreds of millions of dollars they lost by putting her in the movie. Okay? We don't need... I mean, what is this? A handout? It's like, yeah, put something in your movie that no one wants to see, right? Of course, it's not because people don't want to see female superstars or female superheroes or whatever. It's not that at all. It's because their attitude and their wokies, right? That's why we don't have a problem with it. We liked Alien, right? We liked Resident Evil. You know, they have, badass women in those movies. Like Sigourney Weaver, right? No one had a problem with that. It was a hit. They weren't around there talking about silly stuff while the movie's being made. Or having divorce court with Johnny Depp or something, right? At any rate, you get the idea. Of course, here's another movie that just bombed as well. Lost about $80 million from what it looks like. Borderlands, based on a video game. I actually used to play that game a long, long time ago. But it looked like really good in the preview, but I think it's because they had... apparently, it just was a really terrible movie. Because even the critics hated it. But at any rate, like I mentioned before, we actually are almost topped out with this, my friends. We have pretty much everything on board. There might be a couple shares left. If you want to get in, you better get in now. This is it. Okay, we're almost done with the game. Almost everything is done. We have 550, almost 550 people already put in or $400. Link is in the description if you want to get involved. Kind of what some of you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.